Perhaps you have never thought of government debt as being an issue which Catholic social thought and teaching should address, and yet government debt has led to hyperinflations. Burdens have been transferred from generation to generation. It has even led to the destruction of states and arguably dreadful wars. Without the debt that the Allies imposed on Germany after the First World War, it is arguable that the terrible events in Germany between the wars and the Second World War itself might never have happened. Government debt can be pernicious and can often offend the principles of Catholic social teaching. Government debt is not a new phenomenon. It has arisen and manifested itself in various ways throughout the ages. Today, our government has a debt equal to one whole year's national income. Many other rich countries have far higher debts. Together with our aging populations, the effects of this might well prove to be devastating for generations to come. Government debt is often thought of as simply a paper transaction. It is often said that we all owe it to each other, so it does not matter. This is not the case. When governments incur debt, they impose an obligation on future generations of taxpayers to pay interest to those who have lent to governments. Such interest payments in the UK are already far above several core government budgets. They are a real burden which lead to extra taxes or reductions in other forms of spending. How might we view this through the lens of Catholic social thought and teaching? One key principle is the virtue of distributive justice. As Pope Francis has pointed out in relation to the environment, it can offend Catholic principles of distributive justice if one generation acts to impose costs on future generations. This happens when governments incur debt as a result of taxpayers being unwilling to pay the taxes that are necessary to fund the everyday goods and services they demand from government through the ballot box. Of course, not all debt is unjust. It is not unreasonable for governments to borrow to meet the costs of unusual events, such as just wars or pandemics, as future generations will benefit from the nation averting the national emergency. This is especially so if the common good of the whole community or human dignity is under threat from invasion or disease. Similarly, governments borrowing to provide infrastructure or to make other investments from which future generations will benefit can also be defended using Catholic social teaching principles of distributive justice. However, Western governments have been building up debts, not just to address events such as pandemics, but in normal economic times too. The US government, for example, has run deficits in 60 of the last 69 years. The Italian government has not run a surplus since the Second World War. This accumulation of debt can reflect a lack of the virtues of temperance as well as justice. There is a desire by a given generation to benefit from the provision of goods, services, and welfare transfers, while these are paid for not by the current generation, but by future generations. We should temper our desires and be willing to pay for those goods and services we demand. Government debt can undermine the common good in other ways. Catholic social teaching stresses the importance of governments managing their currencies responsibly, and yet excessive government debt can lead to inflation, even hyperinflation. Hyperinflation can destroy the fabric of society and can impoverish the most needy in society. Excessive debt can lead to default. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 5 says that it is better to not make a promise than to make a promise and not honour it. When governments default on debts, a promise is being broken and an injustice created. Debt default can and has caused untold suffering, including in many Catholic countries such as Argentina. It can make the job of promoting the common good impossible for governments as different interest groups fight, sometimes violently, for diminished resources. Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7 describes a debtor as being enslaved to the lender, and this often happens in the case of government indebtedness. Countries have disappeared as a result of indebtedness. More recently, many would argue that in the Eurozone crisis, countries such as Greece and Italy effectively had policies and governments imposed by international bodies over the heads of the people. Debt impairs the ability of government to promote human dignity. It prevents the government serving the people and the common good. It can lead to governments serving creditors instead. The political voice of the next generation is weak, indeed non-existent. They have no ability to have an impact on decisions taken by society and influence policy. Our children, those born and those yet to come, have no direct voice in the decisions of governments which continue to borrow and to spend. If we are to act in the political sphere to promote the common good and not our own interests, this must include promoting justice for future generations.